Hello and welcome to Living Spark, a project of the Spark of Humanity Network, which holds the hopeful message that within each of us is a spark of humanity, and that we can strengthen that by finding and communicating with the spark in others, that we can strengthen ourselves and others, our humanity, through sharing it on a level that at times is a bit incomprehensible. I'm your host, Danielle O'Hallisey. If you recall that Martha Holden spent the past year in this series, which was called Living Mosaic, talking about the spark practice as a means of finding our place in the world, in the solutions to the traumas and difficulties in the world. And this year, I will be focusing on practical means of addressing the baseline exercises, finding ways to express and strengthen our own humanity. We call that, again, finding our inner spark and finding that in others and allowing that to affect each other, allowing ourselves to change, watching as others change or don't. Um, yes, so uh, before I get going today, I want to point out I live in Southern California. I live in a very safe place. The fires are nowhere near me. Don't misunderstand this. We're in a humanitarian crisis right now, though. There are people working in those frontline positions, firemen, healthcare workers. There are many, many people affected by this. I do not feel it's an exaggeration when the governor of California said this may turn out to be the worst natural disaster in the history of our nation, not only of our state. If you're in a position to make a donation, we do not handle money in this organization. We have nothing to do with it, and I won't recommend who you should give money to. But if you're in a position to reach out in that way or in a supportive emotional way, if you have friends just checking in on people, please take a moment and do those things, because that also is an exercise of our spark of humanity. Which leads me now to something I'm going to be doing over the course of the year. Last time, 2 weeks ago, was our first episode of Living Spark. And I'm going to set myself a homework project at the end of each episode and blunder my way through for the next 2 weeks, looking for ways to bring that to bear and to legitimately connect with my spark and the spark in others. Um, Sometimes that's going to look kind of awkward, but I think this past 2 weeks I set a relatively low bar, and I think it's gone pretty well. Last time I left myself with the assignment to, on a visual level, visualization kind of level, to at least once a day seek to cut through all of it in myself, all the layers of ego, all the layers of whatever gets in the way, and to seek my own inner spark and seek it in someone else. Very weird and abstract. I know that. And I know how difficult it can be. I have a way of doing it that works for me. It may work very differently for someone else. For me, when I'm out taking my morning walk, I live in a senior community, a retirement community, and people are pretty good about just saying hi to each other as we're walking around. We frequently, whether you know the other person or not, we just nod and say hello. There are smiles. There are comments about the weather, all the light conversation that goes on when you're meeting someone new. Um, to that is certainly not a bad thing. That is a very valuable thing. That's sort of practicing the skills of social interaction that allow the world to function in a positive way, in a way that's good for all of us. Um, but then in addition to that, I've been sort of looking for, like, visualizing in myself a little, sometimes it's a literal spark, sometimes it's like a Bic lighter inside of my solar plexus, or in a great day in my heart, Sometimes it's a warm glow. But to kind of look for that place in myself and then in someone else, I'm not stopping them and, trying to force this on anybody. It's an exercise. And these exercises, by the way, I've come to look at in the like to give them a realistic sense of how they belong in the world and how they might affect my own perspective on the world. Um, I'm thinking of it like if I were in a room and the sun is shining brilliantly outside, which it's Southern California and it often is, um, but someone has painted the window jet black and there's no light getting in. One of these exercises amounts, in my imagination at least, to taking a pin, walking over to the window and poking a single tiny hole in that impenetrable wall, that wall that is completely obscuring any light from coming in. It doesn't flood the room with light, but it does open up a little bit of something. So yeah, I spent the first of these past 2 weeks, the first few days of it anyway, doing that purely abstract thing. I was even able a couple of times while I was driving, not on the freeway, not in difficult traffic, but just while I'm driving in normal uh, um, city streets, and to kind of look for that in a driver coming my other way, because I think a lot of us get so frustrated by driving that we almost see the other driver as an enemy, as like a potential disaster in the making or something. I don't think I do that, but it was valuable in those opportunities I felt to to touch those places. Um, yeah, to try to touch in an abstract way, if nothing else, to say you have your humanity and I have mine, and those are at a shared level. Those are a shared thing that makes us friends at some level, makes us similar because we are each seeking the same thing, the happiness that comes from sharing our humanity. Then these fires started, and again, I'm safe. I'm not in a place where the fires are happening. But I was out looking for my morning fix of, I mean, I was taking my morning walk and I was thinking, I want to do this thing. I want to find someone that I just, on an abstract way, that I think of my humanity and theirs and see what comes of it. But people are hurting, and people that don't have, that haven't had material loss because of the fires, maybe haven't even had a close friend or relative who has had material loss. But we're all a little bit aware of how close this is. We've all inhaled some of the smoke. We've all been a little frightened. And I found more than once that people had stories to tell of family members who, in fact, had lost their homes. Um, there was a woman who's, I know this guy who's in his 90s. He loves to come out of his place when I'm walking by and declare that he's 95 and he's still going strong and he wants me to have a great day. And for the first time, I met his caretaker and we talked for just a few minutes, but she brought up that when she was a child, the family home had burned down, and in an attempt to rescue some of the memories that were in the house, her father had actually run into the burning house. So she'd seen that as a little girl. Her father survived. He got a couple things came out, and that was it. But it was still the cause of some post-traumatic stress disorder flaring up for her in these circumstances. So I had a chance to listen to her for a while. I had a chance to exercise. How can I be compassionate without being overwhelmed by my empathy? In other words, I needed to not just stand there all day processing her memories with her. I don't think that would have been good for either of us. But I sort of visualize now, not just this spark, this light inside of each of us, this humanity that we each have and each share with the other. I visualized a blanket that I had to sort of wrap her in, give her a sense that I'm happy that you're safe and glad that your home now is safe and that your family are safe, and to walk away, maybe having done something tangibly good. And if I did, I'm going to give myself, a little tiny one of those miniature screwdrivers and scrape a tiny bit more light, more paint off the window and a little bit more light in. I don't know how it affected her, but I did allow it to affect me on a deep level. Um, and I had a few more of those. I'm going to speak about this more in a minute. I am dealing with vertigo, which was supposed to be transitory. It was supposed to come and go, and it's now 6 weeks that I'm dealing with it. And when I saw the vestibular therapist, they actually have that name, people who show you different things that help you to deal with it and perhaps even heal it. When I saw her, she had a couple of very close friends who'd lost their homes, and she lives very near the fire zone where the fires were burning. And so, I get like 25 minutes with her, and we spent 10 of it talking about that. And part of me was wanted to say, my insurance is paying for this. I need to get my treatment. I want to feel better. But I found myself again looking for that visualizing that inner glow and looking for it in her. And that gave me the patience to listen to her a little bit better. And for me, at least, it altered my trajectory that day and in the world. So interesting couple of weeks, unexpected. I was looking for a chance every day to just do a visualization exercise. Uh, a couple of opportunities came up to go, for me anyway, to go a little deeper, a little closer to my actual spark of humanity, to my actual compassionate humanity, and to perhaps grow a little bit because of that. Now, I want to talk about what will lead up to my homework for the next couple of weeks. And this is an odd story. I want to preface this by saying that in any activity in which we're learning new skills, there will be a point where you're actively taking on the positive new skill, but there will also be negativities that we've held on to from our past understanding that will slow us down a little bit. And yeah, I'll use the metaphor frequently in this series of the fact that I'm a guitarist and that I've studied with a very fine classical guitarist, with a very fine jazz guitarist over the course of my life. And I often went in saying, yeah, I think I play this well. I played this thing well, but I noticed that I'm tense. My arms hurt. Something is off after I've done it. And so the teacher will spend time helping me to dismantle the behaviors that are not working for me, even as we're creating new behaviors that hopefully will move me forward. So along those lines, yeah, I'm dealing with vertigo, and really, like, come on. It's been, I had no Christmas. I couldn't visit anyone because I couldn't drive, and I'm still not driving. And it's been genuinely unpleasant. Started with getting my ears cleaned out by a doctor because I'd had some impacting wax in there. And the instant that the wax came out, I guess he hit the eardrum with a strong stream of water. And I went into this state where, if you don't know vertigo, it's not simple dizziness. It's like you feel like you're in an earthquake and the world is moving around you. And you look around and you say, nothing's falling, so this must not be an earthquake. Or you feel like you're on a plane with turbulence, but you look around and nobody else is experiencing the turbulence. So you know that you're having an internal experience. Um, I think I lasted about 4 or 5 days with it. I had already talked to a doctor, gotten set up with this vestibular rehab. And I think I'd gone 4 or 5 days pretty stoically. I was being stoic, however that word works. Um, and then I just cried. Like the holidays were coming up, and I could see that I was really going to be limited for a while. I had literally an entire day of crying, and since then I've had a few spells of feeling like this is never going to resolve. How can I live with this? And one day I was sitting, because sometimes when it gets really bad, I kind of do this kind of thing, like I'm propping up my own head so that I'm not counting on these little sensors inside of my inner ear to tell me which way is up and down or to give me a sense of my position in space. But instead, I have something else to do that sensing for me. and it helps to feel a little more steady. And suddenly I remembered my dad doing that. Now, my father, when I was about the age of 10, um, it interestingly happened on Christmas Day. He just started sobbing, and my mom sent us from the room, and I could hear him because we, sat as close as we could to the door and listened in, that saying that he was sick, that he was his drive to work should have been about a 20-minute drive. He said, it's taking me 2 hours to drive to work every morning. I drive a little bit and I pull over until my mind calms down a little, and then I do it again and again. Um, I never understood that this is what he was living with. I never did. I know that he had to take a disability pension and live unable to work for the next, it's just about 25 years. I had never grasped that this was going on. And by the way, neither did his doctors. This was 1969, 1970 when this first happened, and it wasn't easily diagnosed. It wasn't frequently diagnosed. I've looked back at the history. The things that I'm doing with a physical therapist didn't exist back at the start of this, and they weren't really, even though they came into being in the early 80s, they weren't widely practiced and accepted until right around the time my father died in 1992. So I remember talking to my brother. I'm into this vertigo, my experience with vertigo for a couple of weeks, and I'm telling my brother, I think that's what Dad had. I think this is what he dealt with for a long while. I guess I said, I think way back in the back of my head, without realizing it, I think I was always kind of disappointed in him that he didn't push harder, that he didn't somehow rise up to the occasion, see every doctor in the world till he found the solution and got healed. I think I was I don't think I was totally fair to him. And then as time has gone on, and I've begun to remember more and more details of this, not only did it last 25 years, and yes, I'm not exaggerating, after 5 days I was in tears. And to have gone through what he went through for that long, and to also when he talked to his doctor and repeatedly brought it up and got upset with his doctor, not threatening. My dad wasn't that guy. He wasn't demonstrably angry. He wasn't threatening. None of that. He just was impatient and very concerned that he get good help. And then they started sending him to psychiatrists and telling him he had paranoid delusions, because they couldn't tell what was wrong with him, but they sure knew that they weren't going to fix it because it wasn't a medical problem. It wasn't something that they could deal with. And somehow my dad went from being in my memory this, I was a kid. I spent a lot of time hanging out with him. I tried to take care of him, or at least give him a listening ear. I can remember that and be pleased with myself for that. I also know that as I got older, I got less and less patient with him, which troubles me now. But I'm becoming very aware of the fact that my father not only was not giving up right away, was not only not a disappointment, not only was he not any of the negativities that I was ascribing to him, but he's kind of, I don't know, maybe this isn't true for all of us, but for a lot of us, I've had the benefit of thinking of my dad as almost a superhero when I was a kid. Like looking up to him, like he had complete charge of the world. I was safe because my father was there. My father built the house I grew up in. That house was safe. And to have lost that to this illness that made him seem pathetic and weak at times, to make him cry at times. And as a child, I wasn't prepared for him crying. I was in no way prepared for that. To have gone through all of those years, 25 years, and not just, he never killed himself, he never harmed himself. He didn't give up. He found ways to be productive, became one of the best cooks I've ever met in the world, and it didn't come easy to him. It took him a while to get to that place. I am once again, I once again am blessed with being able to look at my father and see him for all the strength that he gave us. So I'm not going to turn every one of these things into a psychotherapy session for me, but this one certainly has turned out to be that. Um, I I have experienced a profound healing, and I'm continuing to experience a profound healing in my relationship with my father, who passed in 1992. And I am beginning to watch a massive blocking of my own compassion, my own humanity, my own capacity to reach into myself and find my place in the spectrum of humanity and seek my place toward helping the world to heal, the Living Mosaic series of which I spoke. Um, I've experienced a vast movement in that direction through this illness. Do I want to stay ill? Am I going to say, "Oh, good for me. Thank goodness I got this illness"? I am sick of it, but I am so much grateful, I guess, that somehow, wish it could have come another way, but I am grateful that I am healing those negative impressions of my father that I've carried with me all these years, and that I'm regaining my love for him. Not that I ever stopped loving him, regaining my admiration for him. So that was interesting for me. And I hope someone watches this, and I hope someone feels it's helpful for them as well. I just have a few minutes left. So first of all, my homework assignment for the next couple of weeks is I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to continue mining this vein of getting this gunk out of my system that's blocking me from feeling my place in the world of human beings. Um, and I'm also going to look for one other person. I'm aware that certainly this is a pattern of behavior on my part, that when things get tough, I dismiss or reduce or diminish others so that they can become less of a nuisance to me. And that's an awful thing to say, but it is something that I'm becoming aware that I do. I'm going to look for at least one other time that I've done that in the past, or that I'm doing it right now, and something that I can share with you the next time we get together. I invite, and I will always invite others to join me in these quests inside of ourselves to the degree possible. I invite us all to continue to look for the spark, the light, the glow, the tone, whatever works for you, to imagine the depths of your own humanity so that you can join in the humanity of others, join with the humanity of others. I want to thank the crew over at Orca Media. Yeah, we've got some good people over there on Onion River Community Access if you're ever looking for them, or Orca Media. And to Rose Fisher, who does a lot of the stuff that helps us to be online on YouTube, on Facebook, and the entire Spark of Humanity network. Who is that, you ask? It's every human being alive. Everyone has this in us. And therefore, I want to thank all of us for being here, for doing the work, for seeking our humanity in trying times, and for allowing that to guide us to find our place in the mosaic, the chorus, our voice in the chorus, our place in the world, that we can maybe make the world a little tiny bit better, remove another pinprick, another tiny scraping of the dark paint that is blocking the windows and keeping out the light. Thank you all for watching. And yeah, I'm a little early on signing off, but I'm going to do it anyway. Thank you all for joining us. And remember also that you can call in and you can join us on Zoom, and we can talk there. Lots of ways to reach us. Sparkofhumanity.net. You can sign up for the newsletter, and that will give you all of the things, the schedule, the calendar, and the upcoming events and how to join us. So, again, thank you.